Hi, gang. Hello, everybody. I'm holding up for the benefit of the YouTube audience the headline from today's Philadelphia Inquirer, which reads Unaffiliated voters challenge PA's closed primary system. Or this headline, which is appearing in newspapers all across the country from the Associated Press. The headline says Independents who want to vote in Pennsylvania's closed primaries seek help from the state's highest court. Here's one more, just by way of illustration. This is the Washington Post. Independents who want to vote in Pennsylvania's closed primaries seek help from the state's high court. This brings me to today's poll question at Smerconish.com. I have a dog in this fight. Hear me out on this. I want to be in the majority on this poll result. How often do you hear me say that? Not often. Should the nation's millions of registered independent voters be able to vote in primary elections? I'll address that in just a moment. Thank you to my friends at Parks Casino. Summertime is here. We're midway through. That's scary. The beach, the boat, the lake, the great outdoors. Enjoy casino action and sports betting wherever you are all summer long with the BetPark app and the Playgun Lake app. Live betting on sports is better on the BetParks app and the Playgun Lake app. Bet player performance, game props, and more. Whether your favorite team wins or not, there's always another way for you to win on the BetParks Sportsbook and Casino app and the Playgun Lake app. By the way, did you watch the, how do I say this, the baseball gathering last night that ended in a very exciting way? You can have some skin in that game. It's some fun stuff. Plus, check out the new games on the BetParks app. Huff and More Puff, Mega Fire Blaze, Dwarves and Goblins, The Flintstones, plus Money Horse. You can bet blackjack, baccarat, all your favorite games, something a little different. Go to betparks.com or playgunlake.com. Download the app right now. Enjoy all the action and excitement from the casino at your fingertips. You've got to be 21 and in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Maryland for the BetParks app, and you've got to be 21 and in Michigan for the Playgun Lake app. You love to play. You play to win. BetParks, Playgun Lake. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, so the poll question this Wednesday at Smerconish.com, should the nation's millions of registered independent voters be able to vote in primary elections? I'm not a yes. I am a hell yes. This is the legal caption of an action that was filed in front of, I'm holding this up for the benefit of YouTube viewers. By the way, if you're listening to the podcast, check out the YouTube action. You can actually watch me deliver these commentaries. So this is a petition for an exercise of King's Bench jurisdiction, which is a fancy way of saying, Supreme Court, we've got a matter of great importance. We're bringing it right to you instead of going through the usual channels. And it has been filed in the Supreme Court of the United States by 4 independent voters. I am the lead plaintiff. So that's why you see yours truly's name right there. Yesterday, we had a press conference to discuss all of this. Today on my program, a number of guests related to it because of the importance of the issue and the significance to me. Trial attorney and law professor Shane Inspector will be on the program. From Ballot PA Action, David Thornburg is going to be on the program. You can see that David is also one of the plaintiffs in this action. Jared Solomon, who's a Pennsylvania state legislator supportive of open primaries, is going to be on today's program as well. I have released a statement in today's newsletter addressing this. And if you wouldn't mind, because I was very deliberate in the way that I explained this in the statement, which you can access at Smerconish.com. But I want to both read from and expand upon what I put in the newsletter today. All right. Very rare that I publish in my own newsletter, but I did so. You know, actually, the logic is something like this. If a total stranger had been active in a serious piece of litigation, seeking to open what is arguably the most important primary in the nation, Pennsylvania. Think about all the attention on Pennsylvania. Think about the significance of what I'm now describing for you as it relates to the 2028 election. If we are successful in allowing more than 1 million Pennsylvanians who right now cannot vote in a primary election to be able to do so, we could determine the outcome of the 2028 Pennsylvania primary. Those are the stakes we're playing for. And if a total stranger to me, if a random person, male, female, had filed this kind of a lawsuit, I would be saying to TC, please book that person. I need to talk to this person and find out all about it because it's right in my wheelhouse. I am one of the 43%. I am one of the 43% of Americans who, according to Gallup, self-identify not as Republicans or Democrats, but as independent voters. There are more than 1 million such registered voters here in Pennsylvania, and yet we don't have a say in primary elections, even though our tax dollars are being used to stage such contests. I believe that is a violation of my rights under the Free and Equal Election Clause of the Pennsylvania Constitution. Quote, elections shall be free and equal, and no power, civil or military, shall at any time interfere to prevent the free exercise of the right of suffrage. I believe that violates the closed primary, violates that provision because the applicable 1937 law, yeah, that's what we're talking about now, a nearly 100-year-old law, doesn't treat independent voters' votes equally with those of party registrants, which is why I'm proud to be one of the 4 independent voters, including David Thornburg, chairman of Ballot PA Action, who are seeking relief via King's Bench jurisdiction from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I have always taken voting seriously. I turned 18 in 1980 and was excited to immediately register right in the thick of a heated presidential primary. Like many young voters, I followed in the footsteps of my parents. Mine led me to the GOP. That spring, I found myself torn between Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, both of whom I had the chance to meet as a high school senior in the Philly suburbs. I skipped school one morning on a tip from a friend named Charlie Giroux. He was then a Reagan field coordinator. He told me that at a specified time, Governor Ronald Reagan would be walking into Esposito's Meat Market at 9th and Christian Streets in Philadelphia's Italian Market. My childhood friend, Mike Stockel Jr., and I staked out the spot, and sure enough, Reagan appeared right on time. We passed between us a pocket Instamatic camera, unfortunately without a flash, to snap a photo with the future president. A few days later, Ambassador, that was his title at the time, Ambassador George H.W. Bush visited the shrine at Chenstohova in my hometown of Doylestown. I was there and similarly impressed. Upon returning home, I remember telling my parents that having met both the leading GOP candidates, I faced a dilemma in how to cast my first presidential ballot. About something else, there was no conflict. I felt secure in my initial party affiliation. For the next 30 years, I remained a registered active Republican and voted in every single primary and general election across Pennsylvania, dutifully re-registering whenever I moved, first in Bucks County, then Philadelphia, later Montgomery County. Throughout the 80s and 90s, I was firmly planted in the party of Reagan, Bush, Specter, and Thornburg. While I occasionally voted for Democrats down ballot, I backed only Republican presidential candidates from 1980 through 2004. I even served in the Bush 41 administration, having been appointed by the White House as a HUD regional administrator overseeing public housing across 5 states and Washington, D.C., reporting to Secretary Jack Kemp. But the GOP I joined in 1980 was changing. By 2008, I was ready to break ranks in my voting at the top of the ticket. I was deeply shaped by the events of 9/11. My native Bucks County lost more lives, 18, lost more lives that day than any other county in Pennsylvania. I was disillusioned by the Bush administration's pivot from pursuing the perpetrators to a nation-building mission in the Middle East. And when, in a 2008 radio interview with me, Senator Barack Obama pledged to pursue Osama bin Laden, even if it meant invading the sovereignty of Pakistan, words that would later prove prescient, I decided to cast my ballot for him. Still, I stayed registered as a Republican. Domestically, President Obama proposed a market-based healthcare plan that relied on private insurers offering competitive plans in exchanges, yet it was derided by critics as socialism. That rhetoric and the party's growing detachment from reason left me alienated. The GOP no longer reflected my values, nor did my values align with the Democratic Party. The party of Reagan's pragmatic conservatism I once joined had given way to something angrier and more extreme. As a media personality, I also felt boxed in by a label that no longer fit. Audiences often judge you first by your party ID. I no longer wanted to be introduced on television with a Republican chyron, and I don't think I should have to decide between my job and my vote. So during a routine driver's license renewal in 2010, when asked if I wanted to change my party registration, I said yes and became an independent, or a non-party affiliate, as we call them here. To this day, I've never missed a general election. In fact, I don't think I've ever missed an election for which I've been eligible to vote, although it is possible I missed a primary where the sole matter of consideration for independence was a single ballot initiative. That's how much I value the privilege. And it frustrates me that Pennsylvania completely excludes independent voters from participating in primaries, especially at a time of record independent self-identification. When initially asked by Gallup in 2024, Americans were most likely to identify as independents, 43%, in comparison to those who said they were Democrats, 28%, or Republicans, 28%. And that ties the record high for similar Gallup surveys previously registered in 2014 and 2023. In Pennsylvania, there are currently 1.4 million voters, or 16% of the total registered electorate, who are not registered as Republican or Democrat. Here's another way to think of that. According to Jeremy Gruber, the senior vice president at Open Primaries, 14 states, including Nebraska and New Hampshire, have less voters in total than the number of those who are independent voters in Pennsylvania. Gruber notes that there are 30 million independent voters nationwide who are precluded from voting due to closed primaries. That means we don't get a say in primary elections, which are often destiny, effectively determining the outcome in a majority of Pennsylvania's state house and state senate races. By the time we get a say in the general election, the contest is already over. Our missing voice is often one of moderation, which is in short supply in our polarized times. I firmly believe that when independent voters are excluded from the nomination process, we foster the rise of the extremes at both ends of the political spectrum. Better would be a system that forces candidates to have to appeal to a broader cross-section of society, including those for whom compromise is not a dirty word. And so I am honored to have my name associated with this petition. I'm grateful to Shane Inspector and the lawyers at Klein Inspector, as well as Matthew Fontana and the lawyers at Fagray, Drinker, Biddle, and Reith for their extraordinary work in this regard. That's the statement that I've published today at Smerconish.com, explaining my role in this petition that was filed yesterday, seeking to have the Supreme Court of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania declare that this 1937 law violates the state's constitution insofar as it disenfranchises voters like me from voting in primary elections. Voters like me who are, like you, paying the freight to stage elections, except in our case, for those of us who are independents, we don't get to vote in them. We ante up, but we don't get to vote in them. So, fingers crossed that the Supreme Court will take on this matter and agree with that which we argue in the petition, which is a beautiful piece of legal work. Really a beautiful piece, and I think it's approachable. I'll make sure that it's accessible via social media, because those of you who are willing to invest the time in the 55 or so pages, I think will learn a great deal. And as I say, David Thornburg and Jared Solomon in the third hour of the program today, trial attorney Shane Inspector in the first hour of the program today. Today's a day that I wish to educate people all across the country about closed primaries and the negative impact that I think that they have on our representation and our civil discourse. At a time when the fastest growing voting bloc are independents, we should be welcoming independents and giving them more say, not less say. So here's hoping that Pennsylvania will no longer be one of the 9. Frankly, that there won't even be 9. closed primary states. Go vote on today's poll question. Should the nation's millions of registered independent voters be able to vote in primary elections? Cast your ballot at Smerconish.com on that. If you are watching on YouTube, will you please like and subscribe? Hey, come on. Today's the day. I want the love. I want the love for that presentation. I spent a lot of time writing that with, okay, thank you. Thank you. With great particularity. I mean, I've been working on this for days, if not a few weeks, to try and just say it with precision, with no wasted words, and to make the case as to why it is finally time to get rid of closed primaries. Make these politicians have to pitch to the middle and not just rely on the extremes. It fits with everything I discuss on a day-to-day basis here, including the Mingle Project. Okay? It's all about giving voice to people who are independent thinkers and not ideologues. All right, I'm going on for too long now, I fear. Like and subscribe, like and subscribe. And of all days, will you please forward what I've just had to say to a friend so that we can keep this conversation going? Thanks, everybody.